Today we have to talk about some new interesting Nintendo leaks that have appeared online that could have revealed a lot of new Nintendo Switch 2 games in the pipeline, even some Nintendo Switch 1 titles that just work via backwards compatibility, even some claims that the backwards compatibility process and how you access your library of games on the new console will be extremely seamless, and a Nintendo survey that could have revealed a whole lot of other style games than maybe what you're going to expect to see Nintendo have on their platform, but I think is kind of a foregone conclusion in the Switch 2's generation. With the success that the Switch 1 was, we're going to see a lot more third-party support and some games that you wouldn't have seen run on the original Switch that we have today. So two different sources, two kind of different ideas around what kind of games we could see brought to the current gen platforms and the next gen Nintendo platform. So we got to get on the same page with all of this information. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I need to first talk about and go over an account by the name of Ryan from the Bronx, and you will first see right in their own profile it says independent security researcher and freelance content translator, creator of the original Midori account. Now you may remember an account that we talked about at length on this channel, which is none other than Midori, and the reason is because they were an incredibly accurate Sega and Atlas leaker, and somewhere along the lines they started talking about Nintendo project code names, which all ended up tying to real projects that we know that we've seen revealed, such as Echoes of Wisdom, such as the new Mario Party game, the Dragon Quest HD remake games. Like, tons of information has proven to be correct. There's some controversy around how Midori went about getting their information and even their persona online, because they were pretending to be somebody they were not, but we're not going to dive into all of that. The point is that they've had a lot of accurate info over the course of time, and now this new account is popping up claiming to be Midori once again, and I was a little bit conflicted on whether or not to put any stock into this, because it doesn't seem like anybody's going to be able to really verify yet if this is indeed the same individual that was known as Midori before, but they have since been not only claiming a lot of new leaked information, but also shown off some leaked footage of two different games in development at Sega right now that is part of that big games project, with leaked footage of Crazy Taxi and the new Shinobi game, and it's legit footage. You can go to their account and watch it. I am not going to show it in this video, clearly, because I do believe this is the kind of footage that will get your channel a strike, but nonetheless, this does make me think that we may indeed be dealing with somebody here who has some inside knowledge, and not necessarily from the way that you would expect, because they did actually outline how they find a lot of their code names for unannounced projects, and it's really just being very tech savvy, and they outline the process. So it's very interesting. I'll have a link to all of their different posts over on Twitter in the description down below. But keep in mind, until this individual is once again proven to be Midori, if that is indeed the case, you have to take all of this with a massive grain of salt until then, because you can be bamboozled on the internet. But the first post I want to focus in on for just a moment is the following: Xenoblade Chronicles X port for Switch will be released next year. They're not skipping to Xenoblade 4. This port was also made with Switch 1 hardware in mind, but will be compatible with Switch 2. Now, this is an interesting claim, because Xenoblade Chronicles X is one of those games that I'm not the biggest Xenoblade fan out there, just because I have not had a chance to play through the series yet myself, but Xenoblade Chronicles X is regarded as almost one of those Wind Waker and Twilight Princess level games where it just makes too much sense not to bring it to Switch, and it's been stuck on Wii U. And so a big claim about it coming to Nintendo Switch is big, and Switch 2. They are, of course, claiming that this will be one of those Nintendo Switch 1 games that will just be compatible with Switch 2, perhaps with enhanced backwards compatibility where it runs better, because they are specifically saying compatible. Doesn't mean it's enhanced, but it could run slightly better frame rate, that kind of thing on the next gen hardware. But I do think we're going to see Nintendo continue to support the current family of Switch consoles with likely a lot of these port and remaster style projects while the new Switch 2 is being sold and available, and we may have those AAA Mario games and new Zeldas and all that stuff that's exclusive to the new console. But I do think that there's going to be a whole collection of more of the simple projects that are still released on Nintendo Switch 1. In fact, we know in 2025 we're going to have Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA launch on the current family of Switch systems. So that's two new games, but I think we're going to see more like this, and this would line up with that mindset. And hey, it might even lead some credence to the idea that maybe the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are finally going to come over as late Switch lifecycle ports to kind of continue to support the console and to have it have a new lineup of games, even though Nintendo is primarily releasing new content on their next gen hardware. hardware. Now, the next one is a very exciting one for me, and this is, again, taken with a big grain of salt, but Ryan from the Bronx next says, Bandai Namco has been working on another project since last September, one I haven't mentioned, not Project Chronicle. So this move makes sense. The project I'm talking about here isn't by ILCA and ORCA and is done entirely different by an in-house studio at Bandai Namco. He then follows up that tweet with this post, which says, the project I've mentioned here that is not connected to Tales is the first of 2 projects between Bandai Namco Studios and Nintendo titled Project Wind internally. This is not the final title. Now, full credit to friend of the channel, Andre's Restart, as I did see him cover these similar topics in a video that I will also have linked in my description down below, as he does do a good job deep diving all of this stuff that I'm going over with you here from Ryan from the Bronx. But that's also the source that I saw the survey that we're going to be talking about. Somebody revealed that to him. He covered it in the video. That's where I saw it. So shout out to Andre's Restart, great content creator. But Andre seems to think that Project Wind is more than likely referencing Kid Icarus Uprising, a port from Bandai Namco, and I am very much in this exact same mindset. While you could theorize that maybe it's tied to Star Fox, and we've actually had some recent comments from one of the art directors at Star Fox saying that he thinks Nintendo will bring it back one day, that may or may not have any kind of weight or stock to it, his opinion, but I do think we are going to see Star Fox return ultimately. I even think you can make a strong case that there's going to be the perfect type of genre for it to be if they built it almost around a more linear, traditional 3D Zelda type of game like Star Fox Adventures, but also bring it into some space elements as well, where you have the fast action shooting in the sky, but you also have that land traversal and more of an adventure style game, and maybe even some dungeons and bosses at the end of them. I think a Star Fox Adventures modern day with a lot of influence from more traditional 3D linear style Zelda games would be really cool to see. But Project Wind to me does indeed sound like a Kid Icarus reference, and we've talked about this game potentially being a real thing for quite a while, the port to the Switch that is, because Sakurai himself pretty much just teased it on his channel where he says, I hope someone ports this game to the Nintendo Switch, and then just looks straight into the camera as if he's somehow behind the scenes involved with that. And I do believe that that's what's going on here. I think that this is going to be the perfect test the water situation for Kid Icarus on Nintendo Switch to a much broader user base, and I think that they're going to see how that game sells and potentially decide on creating a brand new installment for Kid Icarus depending on how that game performs. That's my mindset with it. So I do indeed think that out of everything that we go over here today, Project Wind and Kid Icarus Uprising, in my opinion, is probably the most likely title that we will indeed see brought over to the current Switch. It may come after the launch of the new next-gen hardware, but nonetheless, I believe it's going to be released for Nintendo Switch. Now, next, we have to briefly talk about the backwards compatibility situation on Switch. We just had this circulating online, once again, thanks to Nate the Hate, who posted from his verified account over on Our Gaming Leaks and Rumors. That backwards compatibility is indeed a feature in the Nintendo Switch 2 console, or whatever it ends up being called. We've talked about this at length before. We have numerous different manufacturers suggesting that that is the case, such as MobaPad and other accessory manufacturers, in addition to very trusted sources like Nate the Hate and even VGC and Eurogamer reporting on similar things. So I think backwards compatibility is a lock for this next-gen console. But Ryan has this to say about how it works. To expand on the Switch 2 backwards compatibility rumors, next Nintendo Switch hardware will also contain download and transfer services between the two consoles to make it easier to play Switch 2 versions of Switch games, such as the aforementioned Xenoblade Chronicles X port next year. He then says the service is internally titled Banco, which is like the Spanish version of bank. So I am picturing this as you almost have an option when you start up your new next-gen Nintendo Switch that it asks you to sign into your Nintendo account clearly, and there's probably going to be some kind of restore purchases right available at the initial setup of the console, where it basically looks for everything you've ever downloaded in the eShop, Nintendo Switch Online, all your active subscriptions and things, and it's going to just pull those over seamlessly to the new console. So you're going to be starting up this console with a large library of your content right out of the gate. We're also expecting full physical compatibility, so you should just be able to pop in a cartridge and it's going to load the game, obviously. But from a digital perspective, I think this is just Nintendo utilizing their account system that we know they're not resetting this time around. They've said it themselves in direct communications to investors that Nintendo account is going to be what they're using going forward into their next-gen hardware, and it's going to help them maintain the relationship with their audience, not having to restart from scratch like they've done in prior generations. So this is going to probably be a more seamless transition to next-gen hardware in terms of your library and how easy it is to get it over than ever before, and that is fully what I'm expecting to see take place for that. Now, the very last thing I want to briefly mention is that there is this new survey circulating online from Nintendo, and they have some very interesting games that you can see that they're asking about. And you have to keep in mind that surveys do not mean confirmation that these games are coming to Nintendo Switch or the successor console, but one thing that we have seen Nintendo do is release surveys directly asking about certain types of games, and then we turn around and actually see them release those type of games. Most notably, they were sending out surveys for Mario and Luigi and talking about whether or not fans recognize that franchise, and then of course we saw Mario and Luigi Brothership revealed. So there is some credence to the idea that Nintendo will ask about game franchises in a survey if they are indeed planning to bring them over at some point in the future. So keep that in mind as we look at this. They're talking about selecting from a long list of games that we don't typically see on Nintendo platforms: MMO games such as World of Warcraft, fighting games such as Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, puzzle games such as Tetris or Portal, role-playing games such as Final Fantasy or Horizon Zero Dawn, adventure games such as Legend of Zelda, obviously, racing games such as the Mario Kart, platforming such as Super Mario series, action games such as Grand Theft Auto or Assassin's Creed, party games such as the Mario Party series, strategy games such as StarCraft or Civilization, sports games such as Madden or NBA Live, shooter games such as Call of Duty or Battlefield, traditional games such as board games, card games, casino games, etc., simulation games such as The Sims or Fighting Simulator, or none of the above. So that's an interesting statement in and of itself. I think we are going to see a much broader genre of games come to Nintendo Switch 2, and it will be something that no doubt we get series that we never saw before. Square Enix going to be there in big support. We're going to have a lot of different game franchises that were not there in the past, and that's very exciting to me. But let me know what you make of all of this in the comments down below. Do you put any stock and credibility into the backwards compatibility situation and all of these new games potentially headed to Switch 2 and the current Switch, or do you think it's one of those things that we won't necessarily see Nintendo do towards the beginning of the next gen hardware's life cycle and as we end the current Switches? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.